London-listed Metal Tiger is an investor in the metals space with current interest in copper, zinc and silver. It invests in existing listed companies and has interest as well in a number of pre-IPO businesses. Well, joining us now, McNeilly is Chief Executive. He's around the table with me here, just beside me, and also Non-Exec Director Terry Grammer, who has 40+ years of experience as a geologist and is also the second largest shareholder in Metal Tiger. Michael, to you first of all. Tell us a little bit more about the business model that you've got going on here, because you don't get your hands dirty as such, do you? You look for investments in the business. Absolutely. So we try to find good operational teams, and then we provide capital to them either directly or on already existing traded markets. How do you go about doing that? Is there a geographical preference? Is there I talked a bit at the top about the copper and silver interests and so forth. Are you aiming just for those, or just a particular area, or are you globally orientated? There's always a constraint in terms of how much capital you have, and there's always a time frame that you're looking towards until a liquidity event or an exit. I think where Metal Tiger is placed right now, it's primarily mostly focused on Botswana, where we think there's a low jurisdictional risk, high district scale potential. It is a landlocked country, so it does mean that you're going to have larger transport costs in the future, but we're very encouraged by the fact that where our deposits are, they're also putting in place transmission lines, which is going to bring down the cost of production in the future. For any future deposits or discovery. Mains power. Yeah, let's bring you in on that, Terry, and talk a little bit more about what Michael was talking about. I mean, as I say, you've got a lot of experience on the geological side, although you are, as I said, the second biggest investor. What is it about what you have on the books that you like so much as someone that's prepared to put so much money up? Well, basically I look for countries that really the mineral potential is the last thing. It's the places where you can actually do things and make money and the shareholders get money, right? And the climate's good, because I don't like the cold, and there are other little attributes. And then you sort of start looking for opportunities. And Botswana I know, because ever since I've retired, wife and I, every couple of years go fishing in the Kalahari Desert there. And I know it's a very good place to operate in Africa, and I do know Africa, having worked there many years ago. So when the offer came from Julian, it was sort of a no-brainer as the potential. I didn't know how successful it would be, because you always take the chance on that sort of thing. But that's, that sort of criteria. Thailand's the same, although it's a lot slower sort of return. And also some individuals, you'll grubstake basically, as I call it. Seed them, get them, help them to get the IPO, and help them with little bits and pieces. Copper, zinc and silver, is that good for you in terms of historical and understanding the geological aspects of it, or are you open to any metals? Well, my big name has been in nickel. Anything LME traded in gold and silver, you know what the price is. Other metals or specialty things, you don't really know what they're valued at. And it's slightly more difficult, whereas LME metals, and nickel's the best, copper's then zinc and then lead, because they're relative value per tonne. Yeah. And gold's absolute best because it has no transport problems. Right. Okay. Michael, back to you. How do you add value as a chief executive? Obviously, you've got more than one eye, I guess, on shareholder returns. Yes. What do you look for in terms of adding value? How do you go about providing investors with their return? Absolutely. So we actively work with the investment companies that we have, and we're constantly trying to work with them to ensure that they have their eyes on a potential exit, and then they don't get lost in the geology. We obviously want them to be adding value in the geology, but oftentimes you find these teams and all they want to do is drill and spend more money and do more science, whereas actually sometimes that can lower your returns and stop you actually making an exit. So for example, on KMO, I think we found a team, Kalahari Metals that is, sorry, I think we found a team that really understands that dynamic, is being very efficient in terms of how it deploys our capital, adding value, having already identified targets. And the real key there is to get it to a size and scale where, next year, depending on market conditions, and obviously there are potentially some issues with that in terms of depending on your view of where copper is headed next year and the general economy, to an exit where we can take it to the next stage and find some other investors who will start drilling. And that's obviously the risk, and we've taken the earliest stage of risk, but we add a lot of value to get it to that stage. And most companies with good, exciting prospects are unable to actually find financiers who are going to come in at that early stage.
and then help them with that exit. And the knowledge for these teams that they have us as a backer is incredibly comforting for them.
As I said at the top as well, Terry, it's not just investing in companies that are listed, it's also pre-IPO companies. You have a track record of bringing companies to market.
Yeah.
Do you see that as a big part of Metal Tiger, bringing new companies along, or are you happier to invest in established businesses?
Well, finding them at the right price with the potential upside, and I'm talking 10, 20 times is what I'd like. It's difficult, and in the market cycle, they only really found at the bottom of the market when everyone's desperate to leave. This deal we did with Mod now would cost millions and millions to get what we got for 100,000 because the market changes. Yeah, and we wouldn't be there because someone else with lots of very deep pockets would hand write the check. So you can't really guarantee anything, but when I see them, they seem to work.
Is there anything that Metal Tiger's got which is going to come to market soon, or is there anything you're preparing?
Kalahari Metals.
Kalahari Metals, because it's it's an add-on to the Mod Resources joint venture, basically, and it's the same belt, same potential, just hasn't been drilled yet. And
when you do this, you retain a stake?
Well, we will own 50%. At the time of the IPO, and then there will obviously be dilution. But depending on the market conditions and the value, we're prepared to even stump up some capital to ensure that the fundraise gets away. We're keen to see the company progress to a listing. We believe it's the best way of actually financing the drilling. We don't particularly want to get bogged down. We're already contributing on our 30% for drilling. Our model is to try and get in early and also find somebody else to take some of the risk with us. I think other interesting investments we've identified, we've put 250,000 Canadian dollars into a Chilean gold exploration play, where I think some of the rock chip samples there are getting 1.34%. Gold.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's yet to drill. And they will be coming to market hopefully this month. Next month in December. Right. And then we've also got another investment in Pan Asia where we put $550,000. And what's key there is that the Mineral Committee has finally been appointed there under the new Mining Act, which means they'll start being able to grant special prospecting license applications. So we expect by January those will be granted, and they have some very interesting high-grade lithium potential deposits as well as tungsten.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing, the sort of lithium thing, tungsten thing is outside one of my criteria, but because it's in Thailand and Thailand has a huge industrial manufacturing base and wants to get into the lithium battery business, and they like using raw materials from home rather than importing them from somewhere else, and tungsten you import from China and lithium from Australia. So these synergies, there'd be a lot of sympathy in having an integrated sort of lithium battery industry from raw materials through, which would sort of ease things along.
I was going to say, how do you pay for all this? What's the strength of the balance sheet like at the moment? And
we've got about £3 million of cash on the balance sheet right now, and then liquid assets. It depends on how you value the options that we have in Mod. I like to view them as cash because we can sell down Mod and they automatically convert. But it's around 10 to 12 million pounds, depending on how you value it.
Do you see yourself having to come to the market to raise more money?
I do not see ourselves having to come to the market until sometime next year, and it will entirely depend on market conditions.
What do you say then if I bring up a share price of Metal Tiger? This goes back to sort of middle of 2016. I mean, Terry, you're a big investor, and as I said, the second largest shareholder. I appreciate you can't direct the share price no matter how high up the company you are, but what do you say to investors about what's happening?
It's just happening everywhere in the world at the moment. And this sort of space, another world has got the speed wobbles, and the UK and Europe are worse than most for other reasons. And once shareholders start happening, they all sort of run for the exits, basically. It's just a thing that happens, and then in a year or so, or whatever time, suddenly it all turns around and the price goes up again. But the fundamentals on this, more than most of these, normally these sort of downturns are accompanied by a huge drop in demand for metals and a drop in price. the demand for metals out of East Asia, where the world operates from, is huge, and the price is very, very good. So this is something sort of induced by this part of the world on things rather than fundamentals, and you just have to put up with it.
As CEO, I ask you the question about what does this price in, bearing in mind what you've been talking about in terms of some of the assets and how you measure them.
What I would say in terms of fundamentals, people value you as an investing company often at a discount. I would like to take the view that a lot of our assets have incredibly high potential future returns, and you shouldn't necessarily value them based on the assets or what they're held at currently. As we're all aware, mining, especially early stage companies trying to capture that first value chain can get phenomenal returns as long as there's liquidity. So this can turn around on a dime.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Look, gentlemen, I have to leave it there, but thanks indeed there for joining us. Michael McNeilly is Chief Executive, and Non-Exec Director Terry Grammer joining us around the table. He has 40 years' experience as a geologist and is the second largest shareholder in the business.